A schoolgirl was pushed to the ground. The people around her shouted that they did not need a leftover saintess in their country. They were angry that she lived in comfort even though she was useless. The girl never wanted to be summoned to this place in the first place. She kept asking herself why such things were happening to her. A few weeks before, Saya Shinomiya was just a regular student who often felt bored in the middle of class during the week. One afternoon, a girl asked if she had finished writing the class log. Saya said she was almost done and told her classmate to go ahead to her club if she wanted. The girl, however, chose to stay since they were both on class duty. This kind and dependable girl was Yuna Katsuki. She was known for being smart, serious, and gentle, which made many students admire her. Compared to Yuna, Saya felt plain and average in every way, though she was fine with that. That was until a strange magic circle appeared beneath their feet. The two girls stared in shock before crying out in fear as the floor gave way. In an instant, they landed in an unfamiliar place. Surrounded by hooded figures who cheered loudly that the saintess had finally arrived, the girls, confused and shaken, asked what was happening. The hooded people whispered among themselves before roughly pushing Saya aside. They surrounded Yuna, believing she was the one they had summoned. Yuna still looked unsure when a man appeared before them. He introduced himself as Victor, the crown prince of the Duni kingdom, and politely asked for her name. Yuna gave it and carefully shook his hand. Victor thanked her for responding to their call and explained in simple terms that she was now in a different world. Listening to those words, Saya realized what had happened. It felt just like the fantasy novels that had become so popular lately. But her thoughts were broken when a soldier suddenly grabbed her and asked the prince what to do with the extra girl. Victor turned and asked who she was. Yuna quickly answered that Saya was her classmate and explained that they studied together like friends. After a moment, Victor told the soldiers to take Saya to a guest room and make sure she was treated well. As she was pulled away, Saya called out for them to wait, but the soldiers ignored her. Yuna also shouted her name, but the door closed before she could say more. Saya was dragged into a room and left there alone. She looked around, not knowing what to think until she saw something outside the window. A massive dragon flew past, making her gasp in shock. She opened the window wider and stared at the town beyond. This place was clearly not Japan, yet she could somehow understand the language spoken here. The truth sank in. She really was in another world. Her mind returned to the words of the hooded people. They had called Yuna the saintess, that if Yuna was the saintess, then what did that make Saya? She did not know where to go or what to do. She knew nothing about this strange land. Sitting weakly on the floor, she could only wonder what would happen to her next. After some time, there was a knock on the door, and someone asked permission to enter. It was a maid named Marie who introduced herself as Saya's caretaker. Saya introduced herself as well and asked Marie to speak more casually since they were about the same age. Marie tried to refuse, saying she was only a servant, but Saya insisted. Marie hesitated, worried she might be scolded because Saya came from the same world as the saintess. Saya then explained that she had many questions. Marie asked if Saya wanted to eat some meat or take a bath. Saya did want to bathe, but she also wanted to know what was happening first. She asked Marie if she could explain her current situation because she had been dragged into the room without understanding anything. Marie agreed to tell her. From Marie's explanation, Saya understood the basics of this world. It was a land filled with magical beasts that attacked innocent people. Villages and cities protected themselves using special tools that created barriers. However, these tools required magic to function, and only those with holy magic could power them. People with such magic were very rare, and even fewer were strong enough to maintain the barriers. That was why nations desperately searched for saints and saintesses who carried holy magic. Marie shared that the saintess of the Duni kingdom had recently passed away. The kingdom searched everywhere for a replacement, but found no one with enough holy magic that if the barriers failed, the monsters would destroy the towns. With no choice, the kingdom reached out to neighboring nations for help, but none could spare a saintess. In desperation, the kingdom used summoning magic, a method that had been attempted before. This time, it was their last resort. Saya realized that Yuna was the real target because of her holy magic, and that she herself had been pulled into this world by accident. She felt frustrated knowing she had been dragged here for nothing. Marie apologized with guilt. Saya asked why she was the one saying sorry, and Marie admitted it was unfair. Saya had not done anything wrong, yet she was forced into this world for the kingdom's selfish needs. Marie confessed she did not even know how to make it right. Seeing Marie's regret, Saya stood up and held her hands. She admitted she was caught in an unfortunate situation, but reminded Marie that none of it was her fault. She simply considered herself unlucky and asked Marie not to blame herself. Marie looked surprised, then relieved. To continue their talk, Saya asked if any saintess had ever returned home after being summoned. Marie explained that while summoning was possible, returning to the original world was something no one had figured out. Saya realized it was like those stories where the chance of going home was impossible. It hit her that she might never see her family and friends again. She also realized she was only an extra, someone who was not even needed. She wondered what her purpose would be in this world. Marie told her to take her time, enjoy what she could, and follow her own path. Even so, Saya could not forget the cold stare from the crown prince. His eyes had made it clear that she was unnecessary. She knew she could not hope for much in this place. That night before sleeping, Saya remembered that she had left her phone on her desk back home. Now she could not even look at her family's photos. Tears filled her eyes as she cried that if she was not meant to be the saintess, then at the very least she wished she had been sent home. Yuna was already forced to serve the kingdom, and if she refused, she would not survive here. Saya realized they had both been cornered and pressured, almost like blackmail. She grew frustrated, wondering why the kingdom decided Yuna was the saintess and not her. She even thought there might be an invisible mark that identified a saintess. Since magic clearly existed in this world, Saya tried to force out some kind of power. Nothing happened, but she believed she would eventually figure it out. Still, she knew she needed more information. She did not know how long she would remain trapped inside the castle walls, and if she was deemed useless, she would be thrown out. With that in mind, Saya decided she had to learn everything she could about this kingdom in order to survive. The next day, Saya asked Marie to teach her. Marie felt surprised and suggested that a proper teacher would be better. Still, Saya preferred to learn from Marie since too much knowledge at once might overwhelm her. She wanted to begin with simple lessons such as language and customs, and she also felt safer learning from someone she trusted. Marie became eager and promised that Saya could leave everything to her. They stayed busy with lessons until they realized the sky had already turned dark. With a short chant, Marie lit up the room. Saya watched closely, impressed by what she saw. Marie wondered if this was the first time Saya had witnessed magic. Saya admitted it fascinated her and questioned if she could use it herself. Marie then explained that she could not sense any magic within Saya, which meant she likely would never use it. This revelation shocked Saya. Not only was she not a saintess, but she also lacked magic altogether. She was only an ordinary girl. Marie tried to comfort her by saying most people had no magic, and that many who did were often nobles or royalty. Even so, Saya grew more discouraged. She felt powerless, believing that she was just another burden in this unfamiliar world. To lighten the mood, Marie suggested either dinner or a bath. Although Saya felt down, she still tried to stay hopeful, telling herself she could survive even without magic. She chose to take a bath since she had no appetite. While Marie prepared it, Saya slumped onto the sofa and quietly wondered what path she should take next. The next morning, Marie greeted Saya warmly and reminded her to wash her face. Saya realized that she had fallen asleep right after her bath the previous night. Marie felt sorry that she had not been able to bring skincare and makeup items. Saya thought skincare would have been nice, but she never wore makeup anyway. She asked if there were any clothes she could use. Marie explained that the higher-ups had not prepared any in time, so she hoped the personal clothes she had brought would be enough. Saya wondered if Marie was really fine with lending them, but Marie said they did not fit her anymore and were too plain for her taste. Saya put the clothes on and thought they looked simple, but still a little cute on her. Marie was delighted to see her wearing them and even offered to fix her hair, but Saya preferred to leave it as it was. When Marie left to get breakfast, Saya decided there was no reason to stay locked in the room and thought about exploring outside. As she stepped out, she finally realized she truly was inside a castle. She felt she needed permission to explore further so she could learn more about the place. Marie soon returned carrying a meal, but she looked uneasy. She apologized because it was only a simple dish since nothing proper had been prepared for Saya. Saya reassured her that it was fine. Marie, however, felt it was unfair because Saya was also a summoned person and deserved better treatment. She found it cruel that Saya was being given only leftovers. Saya understood since she was not the saintess, but she still ate the food with a cheerful attitude. Marie was surprised by how optimistic Saya seemed. After finishing, Saya asked if she was allowed to walk freely around the castle. Marie explained that some areas were restricted, but most places were open to her. Saya then asked her to give a tour, and Marie gladly agreed. A week later, Yuna was officially recognized as the Saintess. Saya, however, was treated as nothing more than an extra in that world. Magic was divided into elements, and the more elements a person had, the stronger they were considered. The 6 elements were fire, water, wind, earth, holy, and dark. Yuna possessed 5 of them. Even among nobles and royals, most people only had 3 or 4. Having 5 elements was extremely rare and made Yuna stand out as someone truly special. Saya, on the other hand, had no magic at all. Even though she came from the same world as Yuna, she did not have a single trace of magical power. Each day she wandered around the castle, but the people there looked at her as if she did not belong. A guard followed her everywhere, not out of concern but only to whispers spread through the halls that the Saintess had already begun her studies. While someone useless was simply wasting time at the same time, gossip began to spread about an envoy from the Empire who would arrive in 2 weeks. Saya found herself oddly curious about this news. She pretended to be distracted, giving excuses when asked, but she kept listening closely. The servants whispered that the Empire planned to meet the Saintess and might even send one of their mages to help with the summoning. Some wondered if the envoy was truly necessary. Others explained that the Empire's own Saintess was already growing old. Since the kingdom owed the Empire a great favor from the past, when they had borrowed one of their powerful mages, it was clear that if the Empire asked for Yuna, the kingdom would not be able to refuse. The conversation only stopped when the guards were caught slacking by their superior. After that, Saya continued on her way. Hearing about the Empire made her realize that her position as the Saintess's leftover would never change. She even thought it might be better to escape to another country. Still, she wondered how she could actually make it happen. If what the guards had said was true, then maybe she could use that to her advantage. For now, she decided that she needed to watch and learn first. Later in her room, Saya picked up a book and discovered that magic relied on imagination, that a person needed magic power, a chant, and a clear picture of the spell. One had to imagine it flowing from the chest into the veins. Saya understood that magic moved like blood. She decided to test it and got out of her bed. She imagined her magic flowing from her heart into her palms. She gathered what she felt, focused her mind, said the chant, and pictured the effect. She tried a fire spell, and the moment she said flames, ignite, fire burst out from her palm. Saya was stunned. She had been told she had no magic at all, yet she had just used it. While reading further, she found a page with a magic circle used to test magic power. She carefully copied the circle and dropped her blood onto it. The moment her blood touched the paper, the circle glowed with a strong, blinding light. The book explained that the brighter the glow, the greater the magic. Saya finally understood she had an enormous amount of power. Not wanting anyone else to discover this, she burned the evidence. She tossed the crumpled paper into the fireplace, but the flames rose up on their own without her chanting. This shocked her even more. She realized her powers worked beyond normal rules. This was a game changer, and she knew she could use it one day to bargain with the Empire. 3 weeks later, a man from the Empire heard the rumors about the Duni Saintess's leftover, who was treated as a nuisance. His interest grew when he learned that this leftover had black hair. That detail made him think she might be important to the Empire. Meanwhile, in the Duni Kingdom, Saya was having tea when she asked Marie if the envoys from the Empire would be arriving later. Marie confirmed it. Saya then admitted she had already decided to leave the country. She believed she would eventually be cast aside if people kept mocking her. She wanted to live somewhere else and start over, and she had already come up with a plan to do it on her own terms. She asked Marie for help, and the maid agreed without hesitation. Not long after, Saya and Marie went to the training grounds of the First Knight Order. At that time, the knights were holding a friendly match against the Empire's knights. Marie explained that this was the place where Saya could find the person she was searching for. Saya tried to push her way through the crowd, and Marie helped by pulling her to a better spot. One of the knights noticed Saya and purposely made her trip. She fell face first to the ground, and the knights burst out laughing at her. They mocked her by calling her a leftover and a useless extra. Some of them said the kingdom had no need for someone like her. One even shouted in anger, telling her to get lost, while calling her dead weight. Saya wondered why they treated her this way when she had never even wanted to be there in the first place. She had been dragged into this world against her will, and she found it unfair. She kept asking herself why it always had to be her. At that moment, a man walked toward her and reached out his hand. When Saya looked up, she saw someone with the same black hair as her, that he wore clothing finer than that of a normal noble, and his presence felt different. Saya, who was already at the lowest point in her life, had no idea that this was the moment when her fate would begin to change. Saya tried to stop herself from crying, but her tears still fell. She knew this was her only chance, and she took it right away. The black-haired man held her hands tightly while looking at her tearful eyes. He asked if she had been the girl summoned with the saintess, but Saya stayed silent without even nodding. The man then called his aide and told him to remain in the area to pass on instructions to the others. He said he would personally bring Saya back to her room, that he also ordered all the kingdom's personnel to stay where they were, including Maria and Saya's guard. Maria looked unsure, but Saya gave her a small smile. The guard loudly argued that he could not leave since he was her escort. However, the black-haired man pointed out that the guard had failed to protect her when she was shoved to the ground and mocked. He said there was no need for knights who could not do their duty. After that, Saya followed the black-haired man. They soon reached his chambers, a place where no one could spy on them. He told Saya to relax, and she thanked him. The man could hardly believe the kingdom had treated her so poorly, even pushing her down on purpose, that he had heard reports that she had no magic powers, but when he touched her earlier, he clearly felt a strong and steady flow of magic. He could only think that she was hiding her strength since she had been summoned to a strange world and was treated as worthless for not being the saintess. He understood well why she would not trust anyone. The man finally introduced himself as Disarch Christophat von Whalestrass, a prince of the Whale Empire and an envoy to the Duni Kingdom. Saya calmly gave her full name and asked the prince to call her by her first name. Disarch quickly asked if she could use magic, and Saya just as quickly confirmed it, that he wanted to know why she had been hiding it, and Saya explained that everyone treated her as useless. If they discovered she had magic, she would not know what they might do to her. To prove her words, she casually cast a fire spell without speaking. This sight left the prince shocked. Saya apologized for surprising him and made it clear that she could use magic without chanting. She lowered her head and asked him to take her to the Empire, saying her magic was strong enough to be useful there. Disarch had never met anyone who could use magic without chanting. He also realized that Saya carried a vast amount of magical energy. Even if she was already known as the Saintess, she still had the potential to become a powerful mage. Disarch stated that the Empire would gladly accept someone like her. Still, he reminded her that she belonged to the Duni Kingdom, and a negotiation would be needed for her release. Saya claimed that would not be necessary because the kingdom would be glad to be rid of her. She also said that if the Empire showed too much interest, the kingdom might grow suspicious. Disarch then revealed that there was one sure way to bring her back with him. He said it was by making her his fiancée. These words made Saya shout in surprise. She asked if that meant marriage, and Disarch confirmed that if he declared he had fallen in love with her and wanted her as his bride, no one would object. Since he was unmarried and held high rank, no one could question his choice. Saya asked if he was truly fine with going that far, and Disarch answered that he could not fully explain. But in the Empire, black hair and black eyes were considered special, and even seen as the ideal traits. Saya then agreed to become his fiancée and asked him to take her to the Empire. However, she made one request. She wanted him to call her by name, not just as you. The prince was taken aback, but promised to be more mindful from then on. Later in the reception room, Victor felt confused and worried when he was asked to lend the kingdom's saintess. The prince's aide, Arno, explained that their own saintess was already very old and her future was uncertain. When the time came, they wanted to rely on the kingdom's help. Victor had already expected the Empire to move in this way, since they had borrowed the kingdom's mage for the summoning. He knew he could not refuse them completely. At the same time, he felt uneasy because he feared Yuna might be drawn to the Empire's more advanced society, and he might lose her entirely. Even though he did not want to agree, in the end he gave his consent. Still, he reminded them that the kingdom also had its own challenges. If the Empire's saintess passed away without a successor, then they might only allow a temporary loan of theirs. Arno gave thanks for his decision. With the main subject settled, Desarche turned the conversation to the civilian who had been accidentally summoned with the Saintess. Victor confirmed that the kingdom was taking care of her. Desarche then requested that Saya be brought to the Empire. Victor answered that Saya was considered a citizen of the kingdom. Desarche questioned why she was treated so differently from the Saintess, that he explained that there was an important difference between distinguishing and discriminating, and even someone summoned by accident deserved proper care. Victor defended the kingdom by saying Saya was being looked after. Desarche pressed harder, pointing out that Saya appeared malnourished. Victor admitted that could be possible. Desarche added that Saya only had one maid and one careless guard, asking if this was truly how the kingdom treated its guests. Victor insisted it was a misunderstanding caused by the staff and promised that the treatment of summoned civilians would be reviewed in the future. Desarche then ended the matter by declaring there was no need for any review, because he would take Saya as his fiancée. He stated that Saya had already agreed, since she no longer had a reason to remain in the kingdom. Victor was stunned, yet he kept the conversation moving and said he would inform the king that if his father approved, then Saya would belong to Desarche. After that, Desarche thanked him and left the room with Arno. Victor stayed silent, still too stunned to say anything that he felt uneasy, though he could not explain why. Saya had been useless in his eyes, and it seemed better to remove her rather than waste any more resources. Yet deep inside, he wondered why it felt like he had lost something that mattered. Later in Saya's room, she spent another quiet tea time while Marie served her. She realized how quickly events had been moving around her. She had agreed to become the prince's fiancée, but she still felt unsure about the decision. Even so, it had been the only path to avoid more mistreatment. The kingdom had already fallen into disorder, and she knew she had always been the type to think carefully about her survival. She questioned if the empire truly valued people with black features, that she remembered her next steps. Saya mentioned to Marie that she would soon leave for the empire. She asked whether Marie wanted to remain in the kingdom or travel with her. Desarche had earlier suggested that she could bring a maid if she wished. Marie quickly chose to follow her. Saya felt relieved, but wanted to understand her reason. Marie explained that her anger toward the kingdom had grown strong because of how it had treated Saya. She said she would only be bullied if she stayed behind, and would rather remain with the one person who had shown her kindness. Saya felt comforted, since the thought of going alone had frightened her. She grew calmer knowing that Marie would join her on the journey. Marie, touched by Saya's trust, made a promise to serve her with loyalty even after they reached the empire. The kingdom's guards entered the room and guided Saya to her meal, leaving both Saya and Marie puzzled. Saya then shared a meal with Desarche and thanked him for it. The prince encouraged her to eat more, but Saya said she was already full. She explained that since her arrival, she had only been eating bread and soup, so her stomach was not used to heavier food. After hearing this, Desarche offered her some of his desserts, which Saya accepted with a shy blush. Desarche then told her that they would leave in 2 days. Saya replied that she would prepare, though she did not have much to bring with her. He explained that once they received the emperor's approval, she would officially become his fiancée. Saya asked what a fiancée was expected to do. Since she knew little about this world, she worried that if she suddenly had many duties, she would not be able to handle them. Desarche reassured her by saying that she had nothing to worry about. His words surprised her, for he explained that being the prince's fiancée did not come with responsibilities. He would handle the military matters while the empress managed the court. The emperor and empress already had 2 heirs, so there was no struggle for succession. In fact, it was safer if Saya stayed uninvolved. If he gained too much influence, it might even cause unrest within the empire. Saya then asked if her only task was to rest. Desarche agreed but warned her not to live carelessly, reminding her that their wealth came from the taxes of the people. Saya assured him that she would be content as long as she had food, clothing, and a place to live, and she promised not to be wasteful. Pleased with her words, Desarche suggested making her a proper dress. Saya, confused, said that the one she wore was already comfortable enough. However, Desarche explained that the fiancée of an imperial prince needed to look the part. He added that she would soon live in his palace within the empire. Until their engagement was officially announced, she would have to remain indoors and keep a low profile. To keep her safe, her maids and guards would stay close at all times. Since many people might envy or target the position of imperial fiancé, Saya realized this was true and promised not to sneak out or cause trouble. She then asked him for a favor. Since his name was too long to remember, she requested that he write it down for her. A maid quickly brought a pen and paper, and Desarsh wrote his name. Saya thanked him, but then he handed her another sheet of paper and asked her to write her name as well. Smiling, Saya wrote her name for him and once more bowed politely, hoping she could be in his care. After Saya left, Desarsh sat quietly, staring at the name she had written. The characters were strange and unfamiliar, yet they carried a beauty that caught his attention. It was not only her writing that intrigued him, but also her power and the mystery surrounding her very being. He wondered deeply about who Saya truly was. Normally, transferring magic to another person caused a sharp and painful reaction. That pain came from the clash of elements between the giver and the receiver. Desarsh had a natural connection to fire, wind, and earth. When he gave or received magic within those elements, everything flowed smoothly. But when Saya's magic entered him, it felt different. At first, it stung. Yet beneath the sting, there was an odd sense of comfort. For magic to feel that way, Saya must have shared at least one of his elements while also carrying an opposite force such as water, holy, or dark. This meant Saya had at least 2 elemental affinities. Combined with the large amount of magic inside her, she carried enormous potential. With the right training, she could become a great strength to the Empire. More importantly, she might also discover purpose in building a life of her OW, and at that moment, Arno entered the room. He asked if Desarsh was truly certain about taking Saya as his fiancée. He reminded him that even if the Emperor gave his approval, Desarsh still had the right to make his own choice. Desarsh questioned if Arno was trying to say that Saya was not fit for the role. He then explained that the Emperor already had children and that a crown prince would soon be chosen. Desarsh had no desire to fight for succession. However, if he gave up his claim too early and misfortune struck the next heir, the Empire could be left without a leader. For now, he would step aside only after the next ruler was safely in place. Beyond that, he was tired of being pushed into random marriage proposals that if he were to marry, he wanted it to be with someone who was not only seeking power. Even after discovering that he was royalty, Saya never changed how she treated him. She looked physically fragile. But despite the harsh treatment she faced after being summoned, she remained strong. Her calm spirit was admirable. Arno had been more worried about the difference in social status. Desarsh reminded him that Saya was someone summoned from another world. She hid her abilities yet still showed the courage to approach the Empire on her own. Arno admitted he had been caught off guard by this. Desarsh warned him not to underestimate her. When Saya asked to go to the Empire, and even when she accepted becoming his fiancée, her gaze never faltered. He knew his presence often scared most people, especially women and children, but Saya met his eyes without flinching. There was no fear and no ambition in them, only steady determination. Desarsh also pointed out that she did not belong to any nation, desired the Empire, and carried unusual black features. He believed she had more than one elemental affinity and no hidden political goals that to him, she was more than fitting. Arno wondered if Desarsh truly wanted to marry someone like her. Desarsh explained that as long as they could speak honestly with each other, nothing else mattered. Everyone else he had met either feared him or chased after power, but Saya was different. She was better than them all. More importantly, the choice belonged to her. Both he and the Empire had to prove they were worthy of her presence. He declared that he should be the one to work hard and become a proper fiancé. Hearing this, Arno gave up arguing with the prince. When they returned, Desarsh already planned to have Saya examined by a physician to make sure she would not suffer anymore. 2 days later, Saya and Marie packed their belongings. Marie told Saya to take some clothes with her. They belonged to Marie, but she thought Saya would need them when they arrived in the Empire. Saya thanked her, although she noticed there was a lot more than expected. Marie explained that she was the youngest daughter of a viscount's family, so she had plenty of clothes to spare and asked Saya not to worry. Saya was surprised to learn that Marie's family rank was higher than hers. In the end, she accepted the clothes. Saya then noticed that Marie only brought a small amount for herself and asked if it would be enough. Marie answered that she would be fine since maids were given a standard uniform anyway. Desarsh, who had been quietly watching for a while, finally spoke and said that the two seemed alike. He then asked about Saya's age. Saya told him she was 17 and asked how old he was. Desarsh replied that he was 22, even though he did not look that old. Arno then stepped forward to introduce himself properly, that he said he was the prince's aide and second in command, and that he looked forward to serving her. Saya thanked him, though she admitted it felt unusual. Other than Marie, no one else in this world had treated her with kindness. Desarche reassured her that she would now be treated with respect as his fiancée, and he told her to grow used to it. Saya's guard then asked if he would be going with her. Saya answered bluntly that she had only been told to bring a maid. She could not believe this lazy guard assumed he could join them. Still, she awkwardly thanked him for his service. Before the moment ended, Desarche reminded Saya that she would need to greet the Emperor as soon as they arrived. Saya worried that the Emperor might reject her. But Desarche told her to stay calm because the Emperor had already approved the engagement, and the final choice was actually his to make. Saya apologized if her face showed her unease, since she was still shocked that a prince had proposed to her. She even asked if he planned to cancel it once they arrived. Desarche said he would not. He explained that many people wanted this title for selfish reasons, and he did not want anyone like that by his side. Saya admitted she also had her own desires. When he asked what they were, she answered that she only wished to rest in a soft bed, eat 3 meals, take naps, and avoid both people and work. She added that she wanted good food every day, warm baths, and other simple comforts. Desarche laughed because her wishes sounded very real. He then asked if she had no interest in fine dresses or jewelry. Saya immediately replied that she did not. For her, wearing corsets felt like being trapped, and heavy clothes were nothing but trouble. Jewelry was the same. Still, she understood that those were not the kinds of desires Desarche worried about. What mattered to him was that she never abused the power that came with her position. He said he would not allow anyone to misuse authority, waste tax money, or mistreat people. Saya agreed, saying she disliked such behavior as well. She promised him that as long as she had food and naps, she would be satisfied. After that, Desarche asked if she would accept a tutor. As the prince's fiancée, she needed to learn proper manners and basic knowledge since she would have to attend formal events. Saya thought the idea sounded bothersome, but she also realized that if she became the prince's fiancée, certain duties could not be avoided. Learning etiquette might be necessary, and even a good chance for her to understand more about the world. While waiting, Marie said it would be fun to visit the empire because it was the largest nation on the continent. Its culture, fashion, and technology were all far ahead of the others. Soon after, Desarche entered the room and told them that their ride home had arrived. He reached out his hand, and Saya held it while reminding herself that she needed to get used to moments like this. She thanked him quietly. Desarche then asked if she was sure she had brought everything, since they would soon head to the teleportation gate. Saya realized she never had the chance to say goodbye properly to Yuna, and she simply hoped her friend was doing well. On the way, Saya asked what a teleportation gate was. Desarche explained that it was a magical tool that allowed people to move instantly between 2 places. Most nations had at least one, and they would be using it to go straight to the empire. Saya thought it sounded very convenient. When they reached a new room, she noticed a door waiting at the end of a staircase. At that moment, Victor appeared with Yuna walking behind him. He thanked Desarche for letting them borrow their mage earlier and asked him to pass the gratitude to the emperor. Desarche reminded him of the promise concerning the Saintess. Watching this exchange made Saya realize that the kingdom truly bowed to the empire. She wondered if the difference in power was really that great. She also thought that this might have been one of the reasons why she had been handed over to the empire so easily. Yuna walked up to Saya and asked if she was really leaving. Saya gave an apology, but Yuna said she should be the one to apologize. Since the day they were brought into that world, Yuna admitted she had only thought about herself. Only recently did she learn what Saya had been through. Saya had been dragged there by accident and still ended up treated unfairly. Yuna wanted to know if she was truly leaving Duni forever. Saya explained that she never knew when the kingdom might cast her out, and staying would only make things worse. As the imperial fiancé, she could at least live a steadier life. She told Yuna it was not her fault, since Yuna also had her own struggles while still trying to think about Saya's problems. Hearing this made Yuna smile. She shared that she had always wanted to be friends with Saya, even back when they were in Japan. They had been classmates during their first year. Yuna remembered being nervous about making friends, but Saya had been the first person to talk to her. Later, when their seats changed, Yuna never got another chance to speak with her. Saya had no memory of this at all. Even so, Yuna never imagined Saya would someday be engaged to someone from the empire. Saya admitted she was also surprised, but it was still a choice she had made. She already knew that life as a saintess would be difficult, so she asked Yuna not to push herself too hard. Yuna felt touched and thanked her, wishing her to take care of herself. She also asked Saya to exchange letters once she was settled in the empire. Saya promised to write as soon as she was able. Before leaving, she noticed something different about Yuna's eyes. Yuna explained that her eyes had changed color after arriving in that world, along with her hair. She believed the change was permanent. Desarsh then told Saya it was time for them to go. Saya turned to Victor and thanked him for everything, even though their time together had been short. She assured him that he did not need to worry because she would not return to Duni, and she gave her farewell to the prince. After that, Saya and Desarsh stepped into the teleportation gate. In a flash, they arrived at the imperial castle. Desarsh reminded Saya to prepare herself since they would go straight to the emperor. Saya thought this place might become her new home. They walked out of the teleportation room, and what she saw was the grand sight of the palace interior. Desarsh asked her to follow, and together they entered an office. Inside, a man welcomed Desarsh back and praised him for his efforts. Saya looked carefully at the man and wondered if this person was the emperor himself. The emperor smiled at Saya for a short while and asked if she had been the girl caught in the saintess's summoning, that he then invited her to sit, telling her their talk might take some time. After that, he introduced himself as Emperor Ehrenfried Georg von Weilstrass. Saya gave her name as well. Eren explained that he had already learned about Saya's situation from Desarsh, especially how the kingdom had treated her unfairly. He thought this was the reason she wanted to come to the Empire instead. Saya admitted it was true, but she also confessed that she never expected to be chosen as the prince's fiancée. She felt she was not worthy of such a role. Eren agreed that it could be overwhelming for a girl from another world to suddenly take on the title of imperial fiancée. Still, he told her not to worry because Desarsh's fiancée had almost no duties, that in fact, very little was expected from her in that position. He also explained that he and Desarsh had no plans to fight over who would take the throne. Saya admitted that she would already feel happy just having food, clothing, and a place to live, so she preferred Desarsh to stay only as an imperial prince and nothing higher. Her reply made the emperor laugh out loud. Saya quickly said sorry, worried that she had sounded rude since she was not used to speaking in front of a true emperor. Eren, however, found her honesty refreshing and asked if her country had no king. Saya explained that they did have a leader who represented the nation, but the actual decisions were made by a group instead of one single ruler. Eren thought that was very interesting, though he chose to leave that subject for another time. For now, he wanted to make sure her position in the empire was clear. Saya remembered that he had told her she had no fixed duties, but she still wanted to understand exactly what her role in the empire was. The emperor explained that Saya had already become important to their nation. He said their empire was the largest on the continent, but size alone did not give them true strength. The reason no other nation dared to fight them was because they had a dragon. It was not an ordinary dragon, but a holy one, the sacred guardian of the empire. That was why their land remained safe from all enemies. Saya understood how powerful the dragon was, yet she still wondered how that made her important. Eren explained further that the holy dragon had pitch-black scales. The very first emperor also carried black features, which the dragon liked and trusted. Because of that, the dragon had chosen to protect the empire from the beginning. Since Saya shared those same traits, she became extremely valuable to them. As the talk continued, Saya started to fear that they might want to sacrifice her. This thought made the emperor laugh, and he quickly told her it was the exact opposite. The holy dragon only favored people who shared its color. So for the empire's future and safety, he wanted Saya to marry Dusark and become part of the imperial family. Saya felt overwhelmed when she finally understood why she was so important to them. At the same time, she realized something troubling. If the dragon had chosen her back when she lived in the kingdom, its protection would have shifted there instead. Eren confirmed that this was true and explained that it was something they had to stop no matter what. He then tried to calm her fears by saying she would be treated well as long as she did not waste the Empire's money or misuse her position. She could live freely in any way she wished. Saya asked if she could first study the basic lessons, history, and magic of their world. Eren agreed and explained that as a future royal, she needed a proper level of education. He promised to find good tutors for her. Before Saya had the chance to change her decision, the Emperor asked her to sign the engagement papers. She agreed and signed them. Afterward, Aaron told them to rest since he knew both Saya and Dusark were tired. After leaving the Emperor's office, Dusark once again offered his hand and guided Saya toward his palace. Outside, Arno was waiting for them as the driver of their carriage. He asked them to step inside and soon wanted to know if the engagement was already official. Dusark confirmed it and told him to treat Saya with the respect due to his future wife. The ride did not last long, and soon they reached Dusark's palace. Saya saw that it was a truly large palace, far greater than she had expected. At the gate, a steward named Regis Mori welcomed Saya and greeted Dusark upon his return. Dusark introduced Regis as a man known for his calm nature, but also respected and feared by many. Saya returned the greeting before Regis was asked to guide her to her room. Before they went their separate ways, Dusark called to Saya and said that from then on, she should simply call him Dusark. He wanted them to grow close enough to speak without formality. Saya agreed with a smile which pleased him deeply. Hearing her speak to him more simply gave him a sense of ease. Dusark also said that he had arranged for a physician to examine her later. Saya felt surprised and wondered about the reason, but he explained that it was his duty to care for her health and asked her to accept it without worry. After Saya left, Dusark asked Regis if anything unusual had happened while he was gone, but the steward replied that there was nothing to report. Dusark then told Arno to rest before he himself went inside. In his chamber, he reminded himself that starting the next day, he would face his pile of unfinished tasks again, that he thought it was better to focus on palace duties first. He also knew how uneasy Saya must have felt in a new land, so he believed it was safer to stay close in case she needed support. Still, he wondered why he cared about her so much. Before dinner, he instructed Regis to tell Arno that he would be working from home for a while and to have some documents delivered to him. He also asked Regis to arrange for tailors who could visit quietly without drawing attention. Regis confirmed that they would arrive at the palace the next day. Dusark trusted his word and left for dinner. Just outside his room, Dusark saw Saya and asked where she was going. He then invited her to join him for dinner, and she agreed. As they walked, he mentioned her secret training with magic. Saya was surprised and asked how he had known, and Dusark explained that the doctor's report said using too much magic without training could cause serious weight loss. Saya only then realized that overusing magic made the body weaker. Dusark explained more clearly that it meant the body could starve, and if it continued, it could even lead to death. He advised her not to use magic until a proper teacher arrived. Saya was shocked and asked if even a small amount was dangerous. Dusark told her to eat plenty of food to restore her strength since magic consumed a lot of energy. Saya then thought that all mages must be heavy eaters. Her sudden conclusion made the prince laugh, and in a way he agreed with her words. While they were eating, Saya kept talking about the use of magic. She wondered what would happen if someone pushed magic beyond the limits of the human body. Dusark explained that for a short time a person could receive magic from someone else, just like when they first met and had transferred magic to each other, that he then asked how Saya had been secretly training her powers. Saya admitted that she trained for about 5 hours every day. She used a spell to protect her room from being damaged and then tried different kinds of magic within that barrier. When Dusark asked what kind of protection she meant, Saya calmly showed him a small round barrier resting on her hands. He was stunned to see that she could use holy magic. Saya told him she could actually use almost every kind of magic. When he asked what she meant, she explained that she could cast any spell she had read about in the kingdom's books. This shocked Dusark because in their world, magic usually worked only for people who had mana and the right affinity. Without the proper affinity, spells would always fail no matter how carefully they were chanted. Yet Saya insisted she could perform every spell she studied. She explained further that she could use magic from all 6 elemental attributes. Dusark asked if she understood that everyone normally had only specific affinities. Saya repeated his words, asking if he meant that people were only naturally good at certain kinds of magic. Dusark explained that magic outside one's affinity could not be used, no matter how much someone tried. This left Saya frozen in confusion, that he went on to say that his own affinities were fire, wind, and earth, which meant he could only use spells from those 3. Finally, he asked if Saya had taken the affinity test in the kingdom. Saya answered that she had not, since she had been locked in her room right after she was summoned. Dusark told Regis to adjust the schedule for the next day and to inform his brother right away about what he had learned and about Saya needing to take an affinity test. Saya apologized for the trouble, but Dusark said it was not her fault. He explained that this situation was unexpected, that he also mentioned that people with affinity for all elements were very rare and were considered equal to saints and saintesses. Hearing this made Saya realize that hiding her magic back in the kingdom had been the right decision, because if anyone had known, they might never have allowed her to leave. Dusark then offered to go with her to the test, which made Saya feel relieved since she had been nervous. After that, their day came to a close, and they wished each other a good night. Dusark left the dining room first, and he walked away while trying to hide the blush on his face. The next day, Saya dressed up with the help of a careful maid named Nora. She gave her thanks, but Nora said it was her duty to serve her. Afterwards, Saya stepped out of the room, and as always, Dusark walked beside her as her escort. On their way, Saya asked with concern what the attribute test was about. Dusark explained that she only needed to channel her magic into a magical orb called the Special Orb, and her affinities would appear as colors. Saya asked if that was really all there was to it, and wondered if she truly carried every affinity. Dusark answered that it would not change much since she was already his fiancée, though she might receive slightly better treatment. The two finally reached a large door, and the prince went ahead to guide the way. A mage greeted them as they entered. Saya felt amazed to meet a real mage for the first time. Dusark introduced him as Doran Fennel, the head of the Imperial Court Mages. Saya greeted Doran politely and thanked him in advance. Doran told her to stay calm since he already knew about her situation. Aaron soon arrived and apologized for being late. The others tried to bow, but he asked them to stop the formalities. He then asked if it was true that Saya had all the affinities. Saya explained that it was only a possibility. The emperor sat down and instructed them to begin. Saya walked to the center of the room and stood before a huge orb. Doran told her to place her hands on the magical tool and send her magic into it. The moment she touched the orb, lights of many colors appeared. The royal brothers were shocked. Their eyes could not be mistaken, for they saw all 6 colors. Doran then asked Saya to release her magic into a mana crystal. The instant she touched it, the crystal shone with a color so rare that even the usually calm Doran cried out in surprise. Seeing this, Aaron said it had only been a theory, but now he believed Saya might truly be an all-affinity saintess. Hearing this left Saya deeply confused. Seeing those results, she assumed that she was also a saintess. Aaron felt even happier to learn this. He explained that their current saintess was already very old, and that finding a successor had been difficult. If Saya was truly a saintess, then their long search would finally be over, that he could hardly believe they were blessed with an all-attributed black-haired saintess. He already looked forward to her future contributions. For now, Saya agreed on the surface, but in her heart everything became far more complicated. Still, if she was really a saintess and the empire gained one, then she would finally have a secure place in this land. The thought gave her comfort because it showed she was not useless. Aaron declared that they should announce Saya's sainthood at once. Dusark noticed Saya's troubled look and wondered if she was fine. Saya nodded, but deep inside she doubted if she was suited to be a saintess and questioned whether things would turn out well. He reasoned that attributes and personality did not matter too much, and he told her not to worry. Yet he soon realized that her life would now be far busier than expected and apologized that this was not the plan they first had. She simply accepted it, saying it could not be helped since she had become the saintess. The two then rode a carriage. Saya asked about their destination, and Dusark said they were heading to the Imperial Mausoleum. She wondered why they were going to a tomb, and he revealed that they wanted her to meet the Holy Dragon. She asked why such a creature was placed in a mausoleum, and Aaron explained that the Holy Dragon preferred quiet places, so it stayed beneath the mausoleum. The heavy security there also kept away unwanted attention. Saya felt it was some kind of secret they should not have shared, and wondered if she was truly allowed to enter such an important place. Aaron gave a sly smile and reminded her that now that she had learned one of the Empire's most guarded secrets, they would not let her escape. This left both Saya and Dusark at a loss for words. Soon after, everyone went inside the mausoleum and followed the stairs that led deeper underground. At the bottom, they found a huge black dragon resting calmly, as if the place belonged to him. Saya wondered if this was truly the Holy Dragon. The dragon then spoke about how remarkable she was and told her to come closer. Saya looked uneasy, but Dusark tried to reassure her that no harm would come from the dragon. The dragon's sharp eyes focused on Saya. He noticed how dark her hair was, and said it had been a long time since he had seen such a pure and beautiful color. He asked for her name, and when she gave her full name, he declared that Saya was now his beloved child. He then ordered the emperor to make her a member of the royal family. Eren responded that Saya was already engaged to his brother Desark. Hearing this, the dragon was pleased and promised to keep protecting the nation as long as his beloved child joined the royal family. Eren expressed his gratitude for the promise. The dragon also praised Saya for having every attribute and an unusually vast amount of magic. He announced that she was truly worthy of being his child, that as he reached his massive claws toward her. Desark stepped in to protect her. The dragon commanded him to move aside, but Desark respectfully reminded him that humans were fragile, and even a small touch from his claws could be deadly. The dragon agreed, admitting that his claws could cut through any beast with ease. Because of this, he decided to change into his human form and asked if that form was acceptable. Everyone was surprised, as even Eren did not know the holy dragon had such an ability. The dragon explained that transforming was nothing difficult for him. When he looked more closely at Saya in his new form, he realized she had not been treated well in the past. Eren quickly explained that Saya had first been summoned to the Duni kingdom, but they believed she had no magic and treated her cruelly. The dragon remembered that kingdom and spoke of how their rulers had always been arrogant, that he was angered that they had failed to recognize his beloved child's true talent. Still, the dark color of Saya's hair fascinated him even more. This led the dragon to make a decision that he announced that he would leave this place. His words confused everyone until Eren asked what he meant. The dragon clarified that he wished to live closer to Saya. Since human lives were short, he believed spending time with them would be entertaining. Eren was pleased with this answer and suggested that the dragon should become Saya's official guardian mage, so he could watch over her directly. The dragon accepted without hesitation, saying that earning human money might even be amusing. Eren then promised to arrange the position right away and asked the dragon to stay at Desark's palace where Saya currently lived. Saya felt confused about what was happening and wondered what the others thought. He did not dare ask them directly, so he quietly asked Desark if everything was fine. Desark did not mind because the dragon staying close to Saya meant she would rarely face danger. Saya still questioned what kind of danger could come to her, even though she was engaged to royalty. Desark explained that once she was announced as a saintess, she would become a target instead of being protected as royalty. Saya looked down with sadness at the thought. She already expected that becoming a saintess would be troublesome since she would have to recharge magic tools everywhere while worrying about foreign attacks. Desark agreed that it was true, but he reminded her that the title would bring her status and honor. She still felt it was not worth the trouble, saying she did not want such things. Desark simply smiled and thought she was lazy. Eren later announced that the Holy Dragon would officially become Saya's guardian. The dragon looked forward to the future with her as his chosen child. Saya wished he would call her by name, since being called beloved child all the time felt excessive. The dragon agreed that it might cause misunderstandings later and told them to call him Vayne when he took human form. Everyone accepted this and bowed to him with respect. While the carriage moved, Vayne suddenly appeared inside through teleportation to join the group. He asked if this was fine for them, and Eren said it was, since the guards had noticed nothing unusual. Vayne then told him to speak more casually because it sounded strange for an emperor to talk to him with such reverence. Eren agreed and asked Desark to look after Vayne. The carriage soon stopped at the gates of the imperial castle. Eren stepped out and said he would return to his duties, leaving the others to head back to their palace. Desark used the moment to formally introduce himself to Vayne and said it was an honor to meet him. Vayne told him to speak casually as well, that he then asked if all of their residences were always this large. Desark answered that they were more or less. Vayne thought about resting in the wide garden later, but Desark asked him not to in her room. Saya complained about how tight the corset was, making it impossible for her to eat. She would also start her etiquette lessons later, and she only hoped her tutor would not be frightening. A stern woman soon entered the room and introduced herself as Yuda Model from the Ducal House of Model, assigned as Saya's etiquette instructor. Saya gave her full name in return, but Yuda immediately criticized her posture as disgraceful. Saya was told she would be trained from the very basics, but it already felt worse than she had imagined. She struggled to believe that someone like her was expected to join the imperial family. Deep down, she questioned why she had to endure this when it was the teacher's job to guide her. especially since she had come from another world. For the moment, she kept those thoughts to herself and gave an apology. Yuda wasted no time in instructing her to sit properly. She ordered Saya to straighten her back, lift her chin, rest her hands lightly on her knees, and never lean against the chair's backrest. Saya was told to hold the position firmly without faltering. Soon the corset felt even tighter, as if it were choking her. At that moment, Yuda pulled something from her bag and struck Saya's back with it. To her shock, it was a whip. Saya's back burned with pain as Yuda demanded that she stop slouching and sit upright. What was supposed to be a lesson now felt like abuse. Liza, the maid, could not bear it and stepped in to stop Yuda. She reminded her that Saya was the fiancée of Prince Desark and said that such treatment was unforgivable. Yuda questioned her identity, and Liza declared that she was Saya's attendant and warned her to end the violence. Yuda then struck Liza in the stomach without hesitation, sending her collapsing to the floor. Saya tried to rush to her side, but the whip lashed her again, forcing her to stay seated. Yuda coldly asked Liza what violence she was speaking of, claiming that she had been tasked by the emperor to educate Saya. According to her, harsh discipline was the fastest way to instill proper etiquette. She declared that attendants had no right to interfere and should remain silent. Yuda returned to Saya and instructed her to hold a teacup the proper way. Saya followed, but her right arm trembled as she tried to keep the cup steady. When she used her left hand for support, Yuda struck her arm without hesitation, and the teacup shattered on the floor. She could not believe Saya had dropped it and called her unsightly. She explained that a cup must be held with only one hand and never with both. She added that a lady should always wear a gentle smile and stay by a gentleman's side with obedience. She told Saya to smile at once. Saya obeyed, but the smile she gave was filled with fear and pain. Yuda decided that was enough for the moment and ended the morning lessons. She said they would continue at tea time and ordered Saya to prepare. After Yuda left, Saya quickly went to Liza. The maid apologized for failing to protect her, but Saya reassured her and asked her to focus on herself instead. Soon, Vane and Marie arrived, wondering what had just happened. For now, Saya asked Marie to look after Liza, while she herself wished to meet Desark and requested Vane's help. A knock echoed at Desark's door. Saya entered with Vane beside her, and her face looked troubled. Desark quickly sensed that something was wrong. Saya asked if it was common for etiquette tutors to strike students with whips. Desark explained that it sometimes happened if a student misbehaved. Saya then revealed her arm covered with bruises. She explained that Yuda struck her over and over for every mistake. Liza had even been hurt when she tried to defend her. Saya firmly said she would not take another lesson from that tutor. Desark understood and promised to remove Yuda from her position at once. Before doing so, he asked if Saya was badly hurt. She admitted the pain was strong. Vane stepped forward and used his magic to heal the bruises, that he apologized for leaving her with the servants and failing to notice what had happened. He felt guilty as her guardian. Saya was not upset with him since she never imagined the tutor would be violent. Desark then said he would speak to his older brother about the matter. For now, the etiquette lessons would be suspended and Saya was told to rest. She thanked him before leaving. Desark lowered his head and apologized once more, which made her laugh softly at how sincere her fiancé was. As Saya and Vane left, Desark thought again of her bruised arm. Anger grew in him as he remembered the sight. Desark then went to the waiting room where Yuda was resting. He apologized for interrupting. Yuda acknowledged him that he did not return the greeting and instead asked why she had used a whip on his fiancé. Yuda explained calmly that the emperor had instructed her to properly educate Saya to become a suitable member of the royal family. However, she had found Saya completely unaware of proper etiquette that Tio teach her quickly. She had used strict methods. Desark's eyes narrowed and his fists clenched. He could not forget the sight of Saya's bruised arm, that he understood that teaching sometimes required strictness, but he could not accept what had been done. He asked the Duchess to extend her dominant hand. Confused, Yuda held out her right arm. Desark struck it hard. Shocked, Yuda angrily demanded to know what he was doing. Desark said that was his question, that he made it clear that Saya would soon marry into the imperial family, yet someone like Yuda had dared to strike her. He wondered if violence was really acceptable in teaching etiquette. Yuda tried to apologize, but it was too late. Desark was already enraged by what she had done to Saya. He ordered her to kneel. He said he would personally make sure she understood the seriousness of her actions, that he declared that she would pay dearly for harming his Saya. Soon after, the emperor bowed his head and sincerely apologized to Saya. Worried by the sight, Saya quickly asked him to lift his head. She knew it was not his fault, and that he could never have predicted what the tutor would do. The emperor explained that the model marquisate had long been known for their loyalty, but he never imagined their lady would act with such violence. Breaking the silence, Disark explained that the tutor seemed to disapprove of Saya becoming his fiancée. Saya frowned and asked what he meant. Disark went on to say that the model family once had a daughter who was considered a candidate for his fiancée. When the tutor saw Saya, who clearly was not a noble, she must have thought he was making a terrible mistake. Saya's face darkened in disbelief. She found it ridiculous and called such thinking absurd. Disark suspected that the tutor truly believed her own daughter was more suited to be with a prince. That made Saya realize that someone like her, who obviously looked like a commoner, must have been unbearable in the tutor's eyes. Then she asked if any of the other candidates had caught Disark's attention. She knew noble ladies were all beautiful and graceful. Disark said there was none, as most of them only wanted the title of royal bride, and they were so nervous that they could not even meet his eyes. Saya laughed and said his scowl really was intimidating. The emperor laughed as well, agreeing that his brother's constant glare made him look frightening. Saya teased that it was such a waste of a handsome face if he kept frowning all the time. Disark looked stunned, and Saya asked what was wrong. He said he could not believe she could tell the difference between good-looking and average-looking people. Saya exclaimed that, of course, she could. To her, everyone in this world looked beautiful, but among them, Disark stood out as especially handsome. Her sudden words made Disark blush and turn away. Saya was surprised to see him flustered and began teasing him, saying how cute he looked. Disark muttered that cute was not something a man should be called. Saya replied that it was still a compliment. Disark said nothing more and quietly sipped his tea. The emperor commented that the two of them seemed to get along well. Saya agreed, since it was Disark who had rescued her from the kingdom of Duni. She admitted that she liked Disark, and those words made Disark accidentally spit out his tea. Saya quickly asked if he was all right, and Disark said he was fine. The emperor then explained that there was another reason he had invited Saya, aside from giving an official apology, that he wanted to see if she could take on the role of Saintess, so he had asked the current Saintess to join them. Soon Marguerite, the elder Saintess, entered the room, and Saya was filled with awe. The emperor introduced her as their current Countess Marguerite Drace, that he then introduced Saya to the Saintess, saying that she was his brother's fiancée, and the person he was considering as the next Saintess candidate. Saya bowed her head to Marguerite, said she was happy to meet her, and asked her to simply call her Saya. Marguerite said she was glad to finally meet her as well. After that, the emperor suggested that they move to another place. The group moved into a room with a large table at its center. On top of the table were two strange-looking devices. Saya asked what kind of room it was, and Marguerite explained that it was the place where the Saintess performed her duties. She then asked the emperor for permission to explain further, and he allowed her to continue. Marguerite introduced the devices on the table as the holy barrier apparatus. They were used to create magical barriers filled with holy energy. The white orb placed on the device was a mana crystal. By filling it with holy element magic, the crystal stored the power and released it through star-shaped nodes that spread a barrier across a chosen area. She explained that the range of the barrier could be adjusted using the dial below the device. Marguerite demonstrated how it worked. A glowing barrier appeared, leaving Saya speechless. Marguerite said that this was what the holy barrier looked like, and explained that the magic kept monsters from entering the protected zone. Devices like these were gathered from all over the country, and filling them with holy energy was the Saintess's main job. Hearing that, Saya thought it sounded like a huge amount of work. Marguerite agreed, saying that it required a great deal of mana, though she was not the only one with holy magic. She did not have to carry the burden alone. The devices sent to the castle usually came from large towns or villages without priests, or from places where the older devices needed replacement. Marguerite also mentioned that only a few people could actually infuse mana into the crystals. Some towns depended on a small number of priests. But since holy element users were rare, the Saintess often ended up handling most of the work herself. Hearing this made Saya worry about Yuna, who had been left alone in the kingdom. She asked if that was all a Saintess did. Marguerite explained that it was the main role, But if a saintess had extra time and mana, she could also use healing magic to help those who were sick or injured. She asked Saya if she disliked volunteer work, but Saya replied that she had never done anything like that before, so she couldn't say if she liked it or not. Marguerite found her honesty amusing and smiled. Saya added that it might sound better if she simply said she loved helping people. Desarche then said that he planned to assign Saya a proper instructor to train her in magic, including healing. Marguerite agreed that it was the right idea. To begin her training, Marguerite asked Saya to try infusing her holy element mana into the holy barrier apparatus. Saya looked at the device for a while, unsure what to do. She asked how she could separate her holy element mana from the rest. Marguerite apologized, realizing she might have asked too much for a first attempt. She gently guided Saya, telling her to close her eyes and focus her energy into her hands. Saya concentrated deeply as Marguerite continued to instruct her, asking her to picture her mana and notice its different colors. From those, she told Saya to select the white-colored energy and direct it into her hands. Saya followed Marguerite's instructions carefully and allowed her white mana to flow into the holy barrier device. Marguerite was amazed by how well Saya handled it. She said Saya's mana was pure and full of holy power. When the emperor asked if there were any problems with Saya's ability as a saintess, Marguerite said there were none. From the color of the mana, she could tell that Saya's power was even greater than her own, showing an extremely high aptitude. The emperor was pleased and turned to Saya that he formally asked her to become the empire's next saintess. Saya admitted that she had once wanted to avoid trouble and live a quiet life, but now she felt she had finally found a purpose. Even someone like her, once called the leftover saintess, had meaning in this world. That thought alone gave her strength. If the empire needed her, she would gladly serve as their saintess. The emperor said the empire would finally be at ease knowing that Saya would take on the role. Desarche then suggested making a formal announcement to the people. The emperor agreed, saying they would hold a grand ceremony and invite nobles from all nations. An all-attribute saintess, he said, would surely bring great joy to everyone. Now that Saya understood her true powers and realized she was not a useless extra, she wished she could tell Yuna and the Duni kingdom about it. She looked forward to seeing the crown prince's face when he learned that she was an all-attribute saintess. They would finally understand the worth of the person they had let go. Desarche and Saya soon left the office. Saya let out a small sigh. The emperor had told them earlier that her sainthood would be announced in 1 month. Before that, she would first debut as Desarche's fiancée at the royal ball. He had apologized for rushing things, but said it was best to act before rumors spread to other nations. Saya wanted a bit more time to rest and do nothing, but she guessed it couldn't be helped. The thought of a royal ball felt intimidating. Yet if it meant Duni would stop looking down on her, then it would be worth it. A servant suddenly came and told Desarche that there was an urgent matter. Hearing that, Saya knew she probably shouldn't stay. She asked if she could visit the castle gardens since she had been curious about them. Desarche agreed but told her to go with Vane and a maid for safety that he said he would come to get her once he finished and asked her to wait near the west garden. Saya promised she would. As she walked through the gardens, Saya admired the flowers and thought about how busy Desarche really was. Yet he still made time for her. After a while, she asked Vane what a beloved child was supposed to do. Vane answered that there was nothing special they needed to do. But if he had to choose as a father, he said he only wanted them to live happily. That alone would make him content. Saya, confused, said that didn't seem to benefit him at all. Vane replied that it didn't matter. He simply didn't want someone who shared his darkness to suffer or feel sorrow. Hearing that made him realize again how truly kind Saya was. Suddenly a man entered the garden and stumbled to the ground. Saya saw him and quickly ran over to check if he was all right. The man said he was fine, explaining that his knee often hurt, and he apologized for the trouble. Saya asked if she should call someone for help, but he said he would be fine after resting for a while. Saya then offered to walk him to the nearest bench, kindly guiding him as they moved together. When the man sat down, he took off his cap and thanked Saya for helping him. Saya smiled and told him he was welcome. The old man then asked if she could keep him company if she had time. Since she was waiting for someone, Saya agreed. The man apologized for introducing himself late and said his name was Barthold. He then asked for her name. When Saya introduced herself, Barthold realized she was the imperial prince's fiancée. Saya asked how he knew that. Barthold said that even though he looked old, He actually held a high position in the empire. He also knew she was not only the prince's fiancée, but also a saintess from another world, that he admitted that he had come to the garden to meet her. Saya then asked if his earlier fall had been an act. Barthold said it was real, that he explained that he had pushed his body too hard when he was younger, and now his knees often hurt. Saya remembered that her grandmother used to have pain in her lower back too. She wondered if healing magic could help with it. Barthold said healing magic was not perfect. It could ease the pain for a while, but it would always come back. Even so, Saya wanted to try. She said her attendant often got injured, and she always healed her, so she wanted to get better at controlling her magic. Hearing that, Barthold agreed and told her to give it a try. Saya then placed her hand over his knee and focused her holy magic that in a few seconds, the spell was done. She asked how he felt, and Barthold said the pain had lessened greatly. He thanked her, saying he had not felt his knee this light in years, and that he could probably walk home. Saya reminded him not to push himself too much again. Suddenly the old man said it was a pity. He then asked if Saya had any complaints about the imperial prince, since he had heard that Dusark was not very friendly. Saya admitted it was true that Dusark often frowned, and his tone could sound scary, so people easily misunderstood him. But deep down, she knew he was actually kind. If she had to complain about something, it was that the height difference made her neck hurt sometimes. The old man agreed that it sounded difficult. Just then, Dusark came to pick up Saya and apologized for making her wait. Saya said it was fine because Lord Barthold had kept her company, that Dusark's eyes went wide with shock. He asked why his father was in the garden. At that moment, Saya realized that the gentle-looking old man in front of her was the former emperor.